Hi, welcome back to Style Your Dreams with Keri Blair. I have a special guest today that I'm so excited to have with me. So, surprise guest, Hailey Rowe is with us. So, tell us a little bit about you and what you do, Hailey.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I am a marketing and sales coach and consultant. I'm also a LinkedIn lead gen service provider and a podcast host myself as well. And I work primarily with service providers and entrepreneurs who want to grow their visibility, grow their business locally or online, and really refine the gaps that are holding them back. So if you are being held back by mindset blocks, or you're being held back by lack of leads, or you're being held back by fear of sales, things like that, I help you with that. And I also have a background as a life coach and behavioral change specialist. So when it comes to habits getting in the way of your business success, I help with that a lot too.
Oh my gosh, you do so much. So, tell me what got you into this field.
Yeah, so I got into personal development around 2010, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my coaching certifications. I just started getting them and not really knowing what I was going to do for a living. But I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I ended up getting my bachelor's in entrepreneurship and then working in the startup world in business development and marketing for some wellness startups. I worked for a certification company for a little bit, a couple different types of businesses, but all kind of in that personal development space. And I eventually in 2017 decided to go off on my own and start my own business, because one of the startups I worked at, even though I thought it was, my dream job and I thought it was so secure, the company ended up having to let everybody go at once because they had a bunch of different delays and things like that. And so I realized the path I thought was so safe was actually not as safe as I thought. And so I was like, you know what, I might as well just do what I was thinking about doing, which was having my own business. But I had told myself I wasn't ready, or I couldn't do that because it's not the safe route. And so I finally gave myself permission to do that in 2017 and have been doing it ever since.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was in a startup as well 20 years ago, back when startups were starting. And it was super appealing and awesome environment. But then when they lose funding and have to let everyone go, it's a total bummer. And people think there's so much security in having a job. And so they're fearful of starting their own business. But I've found way more security in being the destiny of my future than anyone else. Haven't you experienced that?
Totally. There's so much more freedom. It's scarier because you're like, wow, it does all fall on me. But
Right.
at the same time, there's so much more reward with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of clients do you primarily work with?
Primarily, I work with a lot of wellness-based business owners. So a lot of health and wellness coaches, practitioners, people like that. But I do also have some life coach clients. I have some realtors who are clients. I have some B2B types of service owners, service-based business owners. But yeah, primarily people who want to make the world a healthier or happier or better place with their work. If they're a coach or a consultant, those are kind of the primary people who I work with.
Okay, great. And I know you're an expert on mindset. So talk to me about mindset. What do you think are the biggest challenges people need to get over? And what do you feel like is really in people's way from achieving their best lives?
Yeah, great question. So one of the major things I think is anytime you have a dream or desire that you are not going after, or you're not going after with as much oomph as you want, it's usually because you are afraid of feeling a certain feeling. And one of those things that is the most common is feeling defeated because you put in effort and time without a reward. And in business, it's very uncertain because you are starting something new, you're developing new skills, you are trying to test what works in order to get an understanding of what works the best. And so a big thing I see, because if you're not used to doing something new or starting your own business or whatever, a big thing I see is people who say, well, I'm worried I'm going to put in this effort and it's not going to work. But the truth is you're already putting in effort in a different sense, whether it's living the life you don't want or effort in not even like you're just rejecting yourself up front. So you're definitely not going to get the results if you don't try anything. Right. And so what I like to remind people is the feelings you're trying to avoid, chances are you're probably already feeling them. It's just a different flavor or circumstance causing those feelings. So you might as well pursue the thing you want to pursue with the fear or with the feelings that you're trying to avoid, but have the advantage of there being a possible upside and a way higher chance of an upside compared to just staying stagnant and not trying the things that you want to do. So that's a huge one. And then I think the other one is comparison and thinking you're not good enough or thinking that, who are you to do X, Y, and Z in your life? And I think with that, it comes a lot from just wanting our natural desire as humans to be accepted and be a part of the group. But the truth is, really, your brain's always going to look for everything that could go wrong. But the truth is, as I love this quote, and you might like this as a stylist, I'd rather be some people's cup of espresso compared to everyone's cup of tea. So I went into business being like, I don't need to be liked by everybody. I don't need to be resonating with everybody. And it's the same thing in your personal life. If you have something you want to do, but you're afraid your circle will judge you. I mean, rejection, and we've never been able to control what other people think. So you might as well build an identity that you like about yourself, and that's aligned with what you want to be doing in your life.
I love it. I think what you're doing is so important because I think it's timely too, because we're so conditioned to care what other people think and to not show people our authentic selves. And I think we've all fallen to this, right? And so to step back and say, what's the worst thing that could happen? Somebody doesn't like me. Someone puts a bad comment on my Instagram page. And I think tell me if you agree, but I feel like it's something each time you have to get through. I don't know that there's a one and done. Is there?
No, because
I no longer care.
Yeah, every new level of success that you're going for has a new ceiling or limiting belief to break. And that's why you're not already there. So every single time you always want to, when you find yourself having a new ambitious goal, you want to ask yourself, like, why am I not there already? And all the thoughts that come up after in response to that are the mindset blocks and the strategic things you need to solve for.
Yeah, I love it. I remember I have a team that posts for my Instagram. And I remember one day I was scrolling through my Instagram and they had posted this clip of a video that I did. And it was just me being fully self-expressed, but it was kind of like, oh, I'm going to get some bad comments about that, right? Like people aren't going to like that I said that, even though it's authentically me. And it took me a minute to step back and go, it's okay. People need to hear it, right? And I think that if there's one thing we could be practicing today, it would be that. Like, how do I be authentically myself instead of trying to please everyone? Don't you think we could all be more successful if we just did that one thing?
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's important to know or like not have the expectation that you have to be for everybody. Like who told you that? Right. So I think you just need to adapt your expectations, because the bigger the gap between your expectations and reality, the more suffering or dissatisfaction usually we feel. And the more like limiting beliefs that are created from that. But if you go in expecting that, of course, not everybody's going to love what I'm saying. Of course, not everybody's going to resonate. Of course, there's going to be a conversion rate of people who unfollow, follow, whatever, right? You're just coming at it with a much more logical sense, and you're not beating yourself up as much when people don't like it. You're just like, that's part of the deal.
Yeah. Listening to you talk, I think how that got created is large companies. Like you have to, from a long time ago, it was ingrained. Like I remember my first sales job, I had to fit a mold and I couldn't speak out of turn. And I got fired from several companies because I speak my mind too much. Right. And so I think that's where the programming came in, is if you work for a company You have to say a certain thing. You have to be available certain times. You have to kind of not be their robot, but kind of, right? You have to represent their company. And I think that's where we got trapped. And I think that's probably why so many entrepreneurs today are trying to like break free from it, right?
Yeah,
Because
there's so much. Yeah, there's so many shoulds. I think like writing down what do you think you should be doing, how you should be presenting yourself, and just like investigate those and be like, is that really true? Or do I want to explore something else? What else could be true? And I think with you, Keri, how you're helping women with their style and who do they want to present themselves as, I think probably what comes to their mind first when they answer that question is all the things they think they should be. Well, I should look this way and I should present myself this way and I should be more outgoing and whatever, versus because of how we've been ingrained in our companies or where we have a job where everybody tells us exactly what we're supposed to be doing, or you have parents who've always told you like, no, you should be this way, versus the first answer being what we actually want for ourselves authentically. We have to kind of actually get out the shoulds first and then figure out, okay, who do I really, really want to be?
Yeah, I love that you're saying that. And I think there's, I feel like it's practice every single day. And so, and I feel like it's mindset. So do you have certain things that you work with your clients on how to get their mindset where they want to be for success and how to keep it there?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to changing your mindset, I have a couple traits I would suggest. Number one is becoming a more solution-oriented person. So our brains are wired to always look for everything that's wrong, everything that could go wrong, why we stink, etc.
Yeah.
But when you start to catch that, and you can actually shift questions to something more solutions oriented, your mindset opens up and you start building new beliefs and you start laddering, what we call it a ladder thought, meaning, so instead of thinking, what's wrong with me? A better question to ask is like, what are some reasons why I can figure this out? Or what are some things that are right with me? Or what's one thing I like about myself? Or, just something that brings more solutions. And then rather than staying stuck with, I'm just so wrong, there's just so many things wrong with me, you can start to ladder to something that you believe that's not a complete 360 overnight. So it's not like, oh my gosh, you're going to go from I'm thinking there's so many things wrong with me to I'm amazing and wonderful and just amazing. You're not going to believe that, right? But maybe what you could believe is I am really good at figuring things out, or I am getting better. One thing I do like about myself is I know I blank, right? And so I think the first thing is ask yourself in your day and in your life, how can you start? What are some common, I guess, limiting questions you ask yourself? Like, why is this so hard? Why can't social media be easier as a business owner? What's wrong with me? And start to shift those questions to something more that opens up opportunity. That's the first thing. The second thing is to, as I said, define what is a up level this week that you can demonstrate through your actions. So again, rather than, maybe it's like I'm shy and I don't want to put myself out there and I don't want to do any lives or be on podcasts or something like that. Maybe that's a limitation you have. Well, instead of shifting to, well, now I'm going to be on 10 podcasts, etc., maybe the first up level is I am practicing this week going live for 5 minutes. And I have permission to delete it if I want to after, but this is what I'm going to try. And then I'm going to up level to the next thing. And you realize you didn't die and then you could keep doing it. Right. And then the third thing is exploring, first of all, who do you want to be? And then what are the ways you can bring that to life today and making a realistic plan for yourself, like we talked about. So again, maybe it's just going live for 5 minutes, but building that commitment with yourself and that ability to trust yourself that if I say I'm going to do something, I actually do it, and making it realistic, that's going to be a key.
I love that. And I had this epiphany when you just said the going live for 5 minutes and you can delete it. I'm like, you can? I'm like, that's so cool. I would go live every day now knowing that I can delete it if I didn't like what I had to say. Right?
Exactly.
I remember the first time I went live, I was so nervous. I was like, it wasn't that long ago, by the way, but I was like, what if nobody shows up? Or like, what if one person shows up? So I had to train myself not to look at the number of people,
Yeah.
because the number of people said something about who I am, which
Mm-hmm.
it really doesn't, because you don't know if people are on Instagram right then and they, you know what I mean? There's so
Yeah,
many different.
exactly. Well, and
I
you bring
also,
up a good point real quick when you said that, what if I go live and no one shows up? In coaching, it's actually a good thing to answer that question and go to the worst case scenario and be like, how would I manage that? And, or what would I do after that to survive through that? And, or how can I support myself through that if that did happen? And most of the time it won't, but we call it fear setting. And it is a good thing to do and explore, because you realize when you go through that exercise, it's like, what if nobody shows up? Well, I guess I would just delete it if I'm embarrassed by it. Or I guess I'd keep it up for the replay to see if anybody wants to watch it. Or I guess I would just get practice in and be better the next time. Like there's,
and I think the most important thing is you're not going to die.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
The other thing I got present to and listening to you was back in the day when I was starting my business, I would collect testimonials, which we all should do regularly, right? Mm-hmm. And before a big meeting or a big consultation or a big speaking event, I would read my testimonials.
Yes.
Which was great, because then I could get out of myself, because sometimes we're just plain old mean to ourselves, right? And I could listen to myself from someone else's perspective, that I changed their life and I made a difference for them. And I would read testimonials. So I think testimonials are good for us, not just for potential clients, but for us to, if we're having a bad day, to read them and remind ourselves that we actually are, because we're going to have bad days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And when there's something bigger than you, so that's a really good point. Like I too keep a folder of testimonials. And if I'm having an off day, I look through them and remember, like, why am I doing this? Oh, that's right. Yeah. To help other people. Right. So anytime you can get focused on something outside of you, whether it's the audience you're serving, whether it's your family, if you have some kind of habit you're trying to form that will make you feel, more connected with your family or something, that is so key, because then I always say, like, being nervous is almost selfish, because you're in your head about you and all the things you might be perceived as and whatever. And I think it's more important to focus on what's the outside impact you're looking to have. What's the why for why you're doing something? And of course, it can be something self-focused too. Like maybe you want to get better at a certain skill or something, that's great. But if you get nervous or you have something holding you back in your own head about you, it's always good to shift the focus to external contribution and, who you're looking to help and all of that.
I love that, because I think that so often in life we get misguided. It happens to me, right? Especially launching a new business and doing things. Sometimes my focus goes in the wrong direction. Like it becomes about followers or how many people register for this or making money and all of that. And I know for myself, when it goes to that, I am on a train to hell and it's going fast. But if I can like reel myself back and go, wait a minute, why am I even doing this in the first place? Like, I actually want to change people's lives. And that's why I'm doing this. So the reason I would even be doing this podcast is to change someone's life. I want someone to hear this and hear your gems and their viewpoint changes. That's why I do what I do. But when I'm not focused on that, like I said, I'm on a train to hell and I've got to get out of it quickly. And the quicker I can, the faster I believe that success will happen. Don't you agree?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's one thing that keeps you going in the hard days?
Ooh, that is a great question. One thing that keeps me going is seeing it all as a game. So I like to come back to the big picture and be like, why am I doing all this? Honestly, it's because of my value of growth. I just want to be somebody who grows. I want to be somebody who contributes. I want to be somebody who learns new things. I want to keep getting better. That to me is like, that's the game. And so however I want to play that game and whatever channels I'm using to do that, that's all good, but that's the ultimate thing for me. And so when I can return back to that, it keeps me going. And the other thing is just not expecting it all to be positive emotion. So in other words, just allowing the fact that there will be days I don't feel like it. There will be days I'm tired. There will be days where there's maybe negative emotions that come up, and there's nothing that has gone wrong. It's not anything wrong with me. I don't need to catastrophize it. I don't need to make it mean I'm a loser. It's just like, oh, of course, that's just the human experience. You can't have the good without the bad, right? So and you hear so many stories about how, like Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx or whatever, they got turned down forever before they got yeses. And so when you go in knowing there's stats and knowing that there's rejection and knowing that doesn't mean anything wrong with you, it's just like, that's how it all works. You can go in with such a better, cleaner mindset and not make it mean anything about you.
Yeah, I think that that's a brilliant point. That if every day we could just stay present, because that's essentially what you're saying, is we just be present in the moment and we stop making it mean so much about us and our self-importance, right? Because I know that I deal with challenges all the time. And if I can step back and go, this isn't actually even about me. Like, they're not even responding to me. I'm just a character in this play. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And here's what my character is doing, and people like it or they don't. And it doesn't have to be so damn significant all the time, right? So sometimes it's good to just like relax a little.
There's a really funny meme that says, it's like, nobody gives a SHIT, and it's this guy who looks sad about that. And then on the other side, it's like, nobody gives a SHIT. And he's like, yes, like feeling so free, because he's like, nobody's paying that much attention. So it was a funny thing, because it's like, I think we overanalyze how much people are watching us, or how, that one instance is going to derail our whole career or whatever. And the truth is, it's probably not as crazy as you think it is. Like, so just that reminder.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I have a new perspective out of talking to you today, because I'm like, oh, these are good reminders. Like, I'm not that significant and life is great, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the best way to achieve what we really want in life is to just put perspective and be present, right? And, that's one thing I really love about summer. For me, I love summer because it gives me an opportunity to be more playful and enjoy life more, right? I don't know if you take more time off in the summer, but I travel, I take a ton of time off. And I have this like thing inside of me that says, no, you should be working harder. No, you should be accomplishing more. No, you need to be doing this. You should work on your vacation. And then I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen if I actually vacate?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in no worse of shape. I just didn't get ahead. And maybe I could. Some of my best vacations, I came back and the company made more money while I was gone.
Yeah. Or you come up with a really good idea because you have thinking time to actually reflect. I'm so with you on that, though. I do have that voice, because I think as entrepreneurs, we do feel that, because we've always had to be the person who creates something from scratch. And, as we grow and get team members and stuff, some of that can happen without you, but it is this because that was the only option in the beginning. And I think it's just something you have to notice and then say, and now what? What do I want to do with that? Do I really want to work on my vacation, or am I okay with, of course, my mind's going to be talking back about that. That's a natural pattern for entrepreneurship, but you're not going to let it stop you.
Yeah, that pause can be the most difficult thing, right? That taking that pause to breathe. And you're right. The most brilliant ideas come from that pause. They don't come from a busy space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. It's been so great to talk with you. I love what you're doing with clients. So tell everybody where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And thank you for being on my podcast as well. It's called Health Coach Nation. For anybody who wants to check it out, it's for coaches who want to grow their business. But if you're another type of business owner, you might get some value out of it too. I'm on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe, HAILEY_ROWE. And then, of course, I have a free overwhelm cheat sheet. So for those of you who struggle with overwhelm, you struggle with feeling like you should be doing all the things like we talked about today, I have a little cheat sheet and guide that talks about how do you get out of that and how do you get into action. So that's, we'll put that in the show notes, but I believe it could go to HaileyRowe.com/overwhelm or HaileyRowe.com/overwhelm. So we'll put that in the show notes, or you could just DM me on Instagram if you want it. But last but not least, I also have a Facebook group called The Marketing Hub, facebook.com/group/The Marketing Hub group. And you're welcome to join if you're a service provider, business owner, professional who wants to network and grow.
I love it. Well, thank you for what you're doing in the world. I can tell you're making a huge difference. And thanks for what you contributed today on my podcast. So great to talk with you. Have an awesome day. Thanks for listening.